How's it? It's Brendan here from Infinity Investment Solutions, and I thought I'd make another video. Driving in traffic, it's a beautiful day in Cape Town, and let's talk about moving to the States. Oh wait, before I get to talk about moving to the States, we're hosting an investor breakfast next week. One of our service providers from the States is coming out. His name's Todd Baldwin. We do a lot of business with him. He's our accountant, what they call a CPA, a certified public accountant in the States. He's been helping us and looking after our clients and investors for 7 years, 6-7 years, somewhere around there. And probably got 400 or 500 South African people on his books there. And he really understands the offshore market, understands how to deal with the South African client base. And has really made a big difference in my life, because he makes sure that I'm never late with my RS payments, that I'm always on time with the project returns, and that we get stuff done. And his team is relentless in follow-up. So from that perspective, I've had a great working relationship with Todd for the last 7 years or so. And obviously dealing with the IRS can be quite scary for most people, just like dealing with SARS is quite nerve-wracking sometimes here in Cape Town or in South Africa. Dealing with the IRS is another animal entirely. So having someone professional that really knows their stuff and helps us is of tremendous value. So he's in Cape Town next week. If you want to meet him, come through to the breakfast. I'll post the link below the video. He'll be here on Friday. If you can't make it to the breakfast, he will be here for Wednesday as well, on the 28th of November. So come and check him out and get a chance to chat with him about offshore structuring, about the IRS, and how amazing the tax system is in the US if you know how to use it correctly. So that now that the pitch is out the way, let's get into moving to the States. So I've looked at a bunch of different methods to get in. An E3 visa, H1B1 visa, the L1 visa, the EB5 program, the E2 visa. Go Google all of them. There are some other ones as well. You can get the special visa, which I think is called an O visa. One of my mates who plays guitar managed to get in through that method. It's usually held back for very particularly talented people. He happens to be one of those particularly talented people, so it was quite legitimate, and he got his green card in the States because of his exceptional ability with guitar over the last 20 odd years. So it's quite amazing that he got in that way, and I chose go make money, and he said, no, I'm just going to play guitar. So anyway, that's a whole different story. So getting into the States, I'm looking to move over there myself permanently. I suppose you could call it voting with your feet, but at the same time, we built a great business over there, and I think that I can take that business to the next level by being on the ground and really exploding some returns for investors, giving better updates, giving them faster, getting better with communication, driving more of the properties myself. We're finding doing the due diligence from here to be obviously exponentially more difficult and more time consuming, because we can't simply get in the car or get on an airplane quickly and in an hour or 2 hours be there, drive the property, ask all the questions, follow up with the broker, or follow up with the management agent, go drive it again, talk to the tenants, talk to the neighbors, that type of stuff. The stuff we are doing from South Africa is we are relying on other people to be able to do that level of due diligence and sending us the reports, and it is working. We built a great portfolio by doing that. We're just very, very, very careful on the projects that we go into, and they've worked because we're that careful. But we want to get a lot more aggressive in that market to find the good deals. It's becoming an extremely competitive space. The US market is very sophisticated. There are a lot of rich people there, and a lot of private equity, a lot of hedge funds, lots of insurance companies buying similar product to what we aim to buy. So for us to be nimble and on the ground and find great deals, we've got to be physically on the ground. So we're going to go give it a go and see what we can do. So I'm moving over. My part of my team is moving over as well. So Ricky and I will be there on the ground, hunting down these deals and hopefully finding some magic. So that being said, I investigated all of them. So the EB5 program is very enticing because it's very easy. You pay $500,000. It goes into a EB5 approved project, which is usually in a regional center or in a development of some nature where you don't really earn a return on your money. It's simply tied up for 5 years. and you're generally able to get your money back. Sometimes you don't get your money back, so be aware. EB5s can be quite scary. I've heard of one particular client that bought an EB5 program somewhere in Central America, in central sort of area of America, not in Central America, obviously, and he put in $500,000, and when he cashed out, he only got $125,000 back. So be aware that you still have to do your due diligence on who's doing the development, where is the development. Do your research. Who are the partners? What's their track record? Have they built this type of stuff in the past? Who are the attorneys that you're working with? That type of thing. If you do want to get involved in an EB5 program, let me know. I'll put you in touch with the guys that have done a lot for us. And if I was going to do an EB5 program, I would do it through them. They've helped a lot of my clients do it as well. Those that have moved over. So I know they're very good, and I know you'll get your visa, and I know you'll get your money. So from that perspective, they've already checked out. I've looked at some of their projects as well. They're good projects in reasonably good neighborhoods, and they do perform. So from that perspective, an EB5 program, what's scary about the EB5 is it looks like they're going to change it at the end of this year. So they were supposed to review the EB5 program, I think in September this year. They are now looking to review it. They kicked the can down the road a little bit, and they're going to review it in December. So we don't know what's going to happen. The sort of talk is that it's going to go up to between $900,000 and about $1.2 million to be able to get the EB5 visa. So it's if you are going to do one, I'd say do it now. At least it's locked in at $500,000. So if you pay now and you're grandfathered in and you're sorted. The money must stay at risk for 5 years. So bear that in mind. Like, you can't liquidate that money. You can't get it out. It's going to be at risk. And even then, it's not that easy to get out the project, exactly 5 years down the line. It might take an extra year or so for them to be able to extricate the cash out of the project through either selling the building, refinancing it, or something like that. The other ones, an E2 visa, what sucks about having the South African Green Mamba is that we're not on the list of approved E2 countries. So the E2 is you've got to do a significant investment into the US. They don't term what significant is. It's got to be in a business, it has to be at risk for a certain period of time. If the business closes, your E2 gets retracted, and it can't convert to a green card. So the E2 is very specific that you go in, you become a resident for the time period that the business is running or the investment is running, and then when that closes out, then you technically have to leave. So it's not an easy one. This is some of the advice that I've been receiving from the immigration attorney, so I'm just sharing this with you guys. If you are going to go down the path, at least you'll know some of the questions that I asked. The E2 has an interesting thing though as well, is it's relatively easy to process if you do come from an E2 approved country. So the list of countries is available online. Go check it out. Just go Google E2 visa USA list of countries, and you'll get it. So Australia's approved, Germany's approved, the UK's approved, Panama's approved, Grenada's approved, and here's where it gets interesting. So to get an E2 visa, you could technically buy an investment passport or investment visa into one of the Caribbean countries, and the main one being Grenada, where if you put down, I think it's $250,000 you basically donate it to the government, you can get your passport. So they've got a hurricane relief fund type system going that they'll sell you a passport for $250,000. But you're not going to get that money back, but you get the passport. But then from Grenada, you can do an E2 visa into the US. Then in Grenada as well, if you buy a property that is compliant for the passport for $350,000 or more, then you can get the passport as well. So the question becomes then, could you sell that property and get your $350,000 back after the time period that it has to be locked up? So the time period is typically about 3 years. Well, I think it is 3 years at the moment for Grenada. So your money must be at risk for 3 years. Then you can sell that property, hopefully get your money back. And in that time period, you get your passport. And then if you wanted to go into the States, you can do the E2 visa from Grenada with your Grenada passport into the US. So that's another method. The downside of buying the property in Grenada is every single project that I've looked at where they are compliant, they're typically really, really, really bad investments. Like I'm in property, and when I underwrite a deal, it still needs to stand on its own 2 feet. Like I don't mind if I'm not earning that much money, but I definitely don't want to get raped. So I want to know that the relative market value for the property is more or less $350,000. What I'm finding is it's generally not. So they'll sell you a $150,000 to $200,000 kind of market value property for $350,000 because you're buying the passport. So just know what you're buying. If you're buying a passport instead of a property, then that's what you're buying. So I've looked at Grenada quite extensively as one of the methods to get into the States. Put down $350,000, lock it up for, this is not counting the legal fees though as well. So that's how much cash needs to be locked up. Obviously, you're gonna have to spend $10,000 or $15,000 with the immigration attorneys to do all the applications and stuff on your behalf as well. So bear that in mind. So the next one is an L1 visa. So an L1 visa is an interesting one. This is what I've been receiving in terms of feedback from the immigration attorneys, is you've got to have a company in South Africa or in the country that you're coming from that is currently paying you a salary and that has been paying you a salary for the last 12 months at least. Then from that company, you open up a branch in the US, and then you move yourself over to that branch to go and manage it, and you apply for an L1 visa under that company in order to move yourself over. Then your spouse can go with you on an L2 visa. So when you do the L1, basically your spouse can come with you on the L2, and you're both allowed to work for. This is my understanding. So that is probably the most likely one that I'm going to do. So we're in the process of setting up the L1 track history so that they can see the South African company has been in existence for more than 12 months. It has been paying me a salary, and et cetera, and then it can move me over to the States. So that's going to be the one that I'm going to be using, as the L1, and I'll let you know how it goes. It's going to take some time to get it done. Obviously, emigrating is quite a process, but it is very, very exciting. It's a new chapter in life, and I can't wait to actually get on the ground and get started. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys some videos on what worked and what didn't work. There's going to be some failures along the road, I'm pretty sure, so we'll see how it goes. But luckily, we've got a great portfolio on that side and a good business to step into, and an existing network, and that makes it a lot easier to step out. What I like about the States, the reason why it's my chosen destination, beyond the obvious where I already have a business there doing well, is one particular factor, is it celebrates innovation. And I know on the sort of Far East side at this point in time, the Asian sort of side is they're definitely becoming a hell of a lot more innovative now. They're not copying stuff anymore. They're now creating their own stuff, and it is quite amazing what they're creating. But the US still has an underlying celebration of innovation, and they don't have the language barrier. So I can already speak English, or pretty close to American. So because I don't have to overcome the language barrier, I can get on the ground and get going quite quickly. And while China is definitely a very, very big behemoth in terms of GDP and opportunity and number of people and that type of stuff, it's culturally quite different to what we're used to. So we have to overcome the culture barrier and the language barrier. But at the same time, the US GDP and the US dollar is still the reserve currency of world trade. So while China is definitely on the up and up, the US is still very, very, very strong. So from that perspective, I like that it's very strong. I like that it's got a fairly stable currency. I like that it celebrates innovation, and that entrepreneurship is easy to do on the ground over there. To set up a company is in seconds online. To get a bank account open, as long as you're on the ground in America and you can physically go into a branch, it's really fast. Takes an hour or two if you're a foreigner to get the bank account open. So it's easy to do business, and they're very pro-business, which is what I love. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I've done very well in the States. I love that they are pro-business. So from that perspective, it's easy to get on with it. The other thing is, in terms of property opportunities, is because the market is just so damn big, there are opportunities that are cropping up all the time. There's always somebody that hasn't looked after a building and it needs to be renovated, or somebody that's 75 years old and he's got 4 partners and he wants to get out of it and he's a hungry, motivated seller. Or there's always somebody that's trying to get into or out of a deal very, very quickly. And when there are 300 million people, there's always a deal to be had, but there are also always clients for a product. So if you wanted to launch a product, if you want to launch a product in South Africa, no matter what that product is, if you're aiming at people that earn money, you've got 10 to 15 million people that can afford to buy a product. Now, depending on where you pitch that product, let's say it's a high-end product, now you're talking 1 million people that can afford that product, that actually earn enough money to be able to pay for that product if it's a high-end product. And if you're going towards a very particular niche of people in a high-end product kind of range, all of a sudden your client base is very, very, very small. So to reach market saturation can be very fast in South Africa. So we've got to start thinking global. If I want to start new companies or start new businesses, the US is definitely a place where I want my kids to have a foundation in terms of entrepreneurial activity, or creative mindset, that type of stuff, because it's so open to being able to do business, and you don't need that much success to get incredibly wealthy. So one of the great stories is I went to Sarasota on holiday on one of the trips over there with my wife and my kids, and we went to the beach on an average Tuesday, out of season, but very out of season. So their summer is very, very, very hot in Florida, and that's generally out of season. Winter's more their peak season time because it cools off a little bit and people can actually enjoy the outdoor weather much more. And on this particular day, it was obviously very hot because it was the middle of summer and it was out of season. And we went to hire an umbrella on the beach. To hire the umbrella cost me $17.50, and to dig the hole to put the umbrella in cost $5. With a little student that was sitting there under one of the umbrellas that was going out to dig the hole, put the umbrella up, and then take it down in the evening and lock it up. Now I looked at this and I thought to myself, whoa, I just spent $22.50 to hire an umbrella for half a day. And when I looked out at the beach on an average Tuesday, there were probably about 300 or 400 people on the beach on that particular one section. And this was not in after school time. This was in the middle of the morning, and there were probably 200 to 300 umbrellas out that of the brand that these guys were renting out. And he had at least another 500 to 600 umbrellas lying on the beach there waiting to go up for the day, or obviously in peak season when the beach gets really, really, really busy, he's going to rent them all out. And he was paying 2 students to sit over there that were earning the $5 every time they dug a hole, and he was collecting the $17.50 rental on his umbrella. And the umbrella's cost to buy it was one of these nice big wooden umbrellas, so it was definitely not a cheap umbrella that you could buy, just to go to the beach. It was quite a nice expensive one. Probably cost you in the region of $100 to $150. But anyway, the story of it is this: if you're renting out 300 to 500 umbrellas per day, every single day at $22.50, or call it net $17.50, that's a hell of a lot of money. You don't need to do anything else, and you can drive your Ferrari to your mansion in the best place in the world on the beautiful beach in Sarasota. Maybe not the best place in the world, it's a subjective thing, but they were definitely voted the #1 beach in the US multiple years in a row. So, just do the basic numbers. At roughly $20 times 300 is lots and lots and lots of money per day. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist in terms of entrepreneurship to be very successful in the States. And I like that environment. I like it that you can just rent an umbrella out in the States and drive a Ferrari. Or you can build a little app and launch it and get 2,000 or 3,000 clients very, very quickly, because they can all afford your product. If you've got 300 million people, the chances of having 1 million people that can afford your product are very, very, very high. And to reach them is really, really easy. So from that perspective, I'm really excited to be in a place that celebrates innovation, that's easy to do business, that is the world's reserve currency, and to put my family in that space where we can go and see what we can do. And obviously property is going to be our main thing. I just got onto a dirt road just so the phone is shaking a little bit, and I look forward to sharing all the future updates. Take care and bye-bye.